Minnesotans have also approved her as the person for the job to lead them statewide from the time that she was AG all the way up through the Senate. She's known in the Senate as one of the most bipartisan. She's won awards for it. I mean, at a time when there is such great division in this country, but really focusing on Minnesota, she is the right person to cut through the noise, to work across the aisle and get things back to some semblance of peace and community in Minnesota.
Yeah, someone who genuinely works bipartisan and with a level of pragmatism, I think, in the upper chamber that you don't often see these days. Shamaiko, yesterday, current Governor Tim Walz said he'd never run for an elected office again. The decision, of course, to end his campaign, it shocked a lot of folks when he was taking that heat for the handling of the alleged child care fraud. I want you to listen to how Klobuchar addressed that.
I don't like fraud or waste in government. That's why I went after crime as county attorney. I will make sure the people who steal taxpayer money go to jail and root out the fraud by changing the way state government works.
I mean, I think a pretty agreeable stance.
Yeah, of course.
But this is an issue in Minnesota.
It's a big
without
issue.
any question at all. You can look at the cases up and down the last couple of years related to this issue. What do you think of that message?
Well, first of all, I'll say that I think Tim Walz has just completely dropped the ball on this. And his responses, in my opinion, are just unsatisfactory, which is why I think he's decided not to run again. That said, I went and looked at Senator Klobuchar's record when she was a prosecutor, very, very tough prosecutor. And I don't know if you recall, Phil, but when she was running for president, some issues came up because of her time as a prosecutor. So this is a no-nonsense person. I've had the pleasure of meeting the senator a couple times. A lot of respect for her. She's well regarded on the Republican side in the Senate. She is someone who believes in legislating, and I think she's going to do a tremendous job as an executive. Look, we have our differences, but I have a tremendous amount of respect and appreciation for political leaders who do care about getting something done. We may not agree on everything, but just come to the table showing that you're trying to accomplish something. I think she's going to get a lot of support, even from some of the conservative Republicans in the state legislature in her state. I think we'll try to find avenues to work with her in her cabinet. So I wish her the best of luck.
I want to swing back, and not just because it was surreal standing at the Magic Well with John King 6 years later doing the same thing we were doing 6 years ago in the same state. but this issue, I don't know if people noticed, but last week in Davos, the president, like out of the blue, said something like, people will soon be prosecuted for what they did. Again, falsely claiming the 2020 election was rigged. And it seemed like a very outlier line. And then today, Trump posted this, quote, Trump won big, crooked election. Of course, yesterday, there was an FBI raid in Fulton County. There's a huge midterm election coming up here.
Yeah.
How does this impact things?
I mean, I'm going to say this as somebody from Georgia. I cannot believe the president is centering himself at a time when Republicans in Georgia desperately need him. There's a tight race happening at the governor's level. Of course, we know that Senator Jon Ossoff is running again. He's highly favored. I mean, this is the time to really lean in and support the Republican Party. But here's the division again. President Trump cares about President Trump and his legacy. And part of that legacy is in his belief that he won that election fairly. But the Republican Party has to exist and move on beyond him. And this is one of those trying times where Republicans have to acknowledge that the leader, the person they have at the top of the ticket, does not care what the party looks like a year from now, 2 years from now when he's done.
What's your read on the Gabbard appearance?
I was a bit surprised by that. I mean, I thought it was odd considering her position. That said, when I think about the president's record, we had tremendous victories in 2024. Obviously, he won. And I think a lot of Republicans in some very tight races are going to want the president's endorsement. Some places are going to want the president to turn out for them. Some places may say, hey, we need a degree of separation because maybe it's a purple district. It's a toss-up. I think the White House is going to be understanding of that. But if you listen to Susie Wiles, she's going to have the president out there running like he's running for re-election again himself. And in some places, I think that's going to be favorable. Some places we got to avoid. That said, I probably wouldn't focus so much on this, Phil. What I'm looking at right now is some of the enthusiasm gaps that we're seeing among Republicans and Democratic voters. I'm looking at where independents are and some of their frustration. We got to make sure that those guys turn out for us versus our opponents on the other side. Talking about the economy, talking about the successes with immigration. I think those are the things that are going to move the needle.
But I think that's actually a really interesting point that I want to follow up on, because the risk here is compounding those issues that already exist in a state where, like, if you're at the NRSC right now, you're watching all this play out and banging your head against a wall. Jon Ossoff has a ton of money and yet is in Georgia, therefore makes him beatable just by the makeup of the state. What are you doing?